It's been about 6 weeks since we've done an update on the huge workshop clean out series. We got to part 11 where I'd finished cleaning out the shed, processed a lot of stuff, put in 2 weeks of hard work. I've been back to get the rubbish, picked up the firewood. It was all done and dusted. The next part of the series was going to be processing, but I haven't got back to that yet. I've done a little bit. But I've had, as most of you who follow my channel know, I've had to go back to the farm a lot because Dad's still in hospital. We have to then rush the farm clean up because we're going to run out of time on that. I've also had some other things going on, some other projects. It's been very busy and this has just been shelved a bit. But let's get back to it. I'm going to show you where I'm up to. I've just fixed up an old workbench in the trailer, so we'll go and have a look at that shortly. I'm still sorting out some of the scrap. I have sold some stuff through the shop, so I'll have a look at the notebook shortly and just see what we've got coming back in. I need to get back onto it pretty soon. I haven't done anything with the motorbikes. The lathe and the other equipment that I'm keeping is in my carport under blankets. We'll have a look at those. So everything's been a bit on hold, but we will touch base in this episode. Have a look at some of the stuff I've been sorting. We might even unbox a few little buckets of scrap just to show you what I'm doing with it. Scrap, workshop, hardware, everything. As you probably saw if you followed the series, as I was cleaning up, everything became a lucky dip box, although most of it was in the first place. So let's just do an update on this series, episode 12. We haven't got anything on eBay yet, but I'll show you what I've been selling and what I've been fixing up and getting in the shop. Just going for a walk around now and showing you what I'm up to with the sorting of the stuff from the shed. We've got lots of insulated copper wire. There's some electric motors and transformers there. There's some aluminium, and I did scrap out that lawnmower base. It's cracked and got bits broken, so it's only going for cast aluminium. And I did mention that I will segregate all the scrap from this deal just purely for curiosity to see how much it all adds up. Let's step into the carport, which is really messy at the moment. I had to move a lot of stuff around to get this great big steel bench back along the wall. It's not its final resting place. I do want it in my shed, but since I can't get into the shed for now, I thought it best be put against the wall here and I can stack stuff on it. So the carport is really meant for cars, but at the moment it's a processing area and a staging area. There's some larger things on the front here. Some of these came from this deal, some didn't. They're a little mixed up, but I do remember where piles of boxes are that came from this shed. There's lots of tools over there, and then there's some stuff from the farm that I have to process. So it's just a big pile here, but it's the only spot I could put it for now. There's more stuff back in there from the farm, and that Sharp TV's from another deal years ago. So a bit of a mixture in here, but I did get that bench back along the wall, which was the aim. And then we have on the trailer the workbench. You may remember, one of the last things to come out of the shed, and I've just fixed this up. I took it to the car wash and pressure washed it, and one of the top boards had come off when I moved it, so I've re-nailed it. It was pretty wonky, but now it's quite stable and it's clean, and it's going to look absolutely magnificent in the shop. It's got years and years of use which you just cannot recreate, and it's a fantastic look. And these things are pretty popular. I'm going to put about $300 on this in the shop, and we'll use it for displaying tools and things until someone just can't resist buying it. So that was good to get that sorted. We'll get that into the shop soon. And that's something out of my store sheds. How good does that look? Lovely old timber. Really good. The bandsaw is under there. The lathe is under there. I've got them all well wrapped up so they don't get damp and rusty. I certainly need to make room to get them into my shed at some stage in the future, because I can't wait to learn how to use that lathe and get it all set up properly. But anyway, that's where they are for now. They probably won't be going anywhere for a while if we're honest with ourselves, but at least they're safe and they're out of the weather. Okay, it's a further couple of weeks later. It's taken me a while to finish this video, but I have got the workbench into the shop, as you can see. So here's a few different angles of where I've put it and what it looks like. I haven't really set it up with a lot of nice tools at the moment, but we had to reorganize the shop in a hurry one day, and that's where the bench got put. And I've decided I won't put $300 on it. I think I'll actually have it not for sale because I think it's just going to work in the shop. It looks good and I really don't want someone to take it away. And now for a look at the notepad and what we've sold. And I have sold a fair bit of the stuff that I've actually priced, but most of it is still stashed away and needs to be cleaned up, sorted and priced. But it'll give you an idea of what I've got coming back in as far as return on money invested. A lot of these things you probably didn't see. The old 3-point linkage slasher, I think I've got some footage of it here. That sold very quickly on Facebook, and I mainly let it go cheap so that it would be taken away and I didn't have to move it. There's some footy card albums here that I have to admit I found in the recycle bin when I was just walking past. You know, a bit of an automatic habit to lift the lid of the bin and have a quick glance at what's in it, because when older people clean up, they throw out good stuff. 2 albums of footy cards I put in the shop sold the same weekend, $50. How about that? The workbench, this was the big workbench. I've got some footage of it here. I sold that fairly cheap again, and some people came and got it the next day and took it away. It was good value for them. I was happy to take $100 for it to get it out of the road very quickly, and again I didn't have to lift it. Some various bits and pieces, even odds and ends I'm finding in boxes that I'm sorting out. I'm just pricing stuff as I go. That was another workbench that I sold straight from the shed. This Pioneer amplifier I actually sold to a mate, Dean. $100. I think it was worth more than that, and he was having a good play with it. I think it works. What else have we got here? Just odds and ends that you wouldn't have even seen. They're just in random boxes, but you can see we've got some fairly reasonable prices for this sort of stuff. Anything else of interest here? Just quickly scanning through. Mostly tools and odds and ends here. The lifting jib, I think I had a little bit of footage here. It was in the long grass. Bit of a drama with that because apparently it had been promised to the neighbour and he hadn't paid for it, and I was told I could take it. And that's the trouble with dealing with older people. They forget what they've done or who they've promised things to. In the end, I sold it back to the neighbour at a reduced price. I think it was worth at least $2.50. But you've got to do those sort of things, especially in a small town. What else have we got here? Oh, the coins. And I've got a bit of footage of the coins. Well, at least there was some Canadian paper money and some coins. And I've actually sold quite a lot of that. I've got them in an album here. I priced them out based off what stuff was getting on eBay, just roughly. But coins sell really well through the shop. The spray trailer, I let go for $200. Again, fairly cheap, but I didn't want it hanging around. And I think I've got some photos of the fiberglass body that was originally on the chassis that was made into the spray trailer. And I got $30 for that, just again to get it out of the road quickly. It's too big to put in the shop. Some random other stuff, some steel posts I sold at $2 each. They all went. So our total, I don't know if I've got a total written down. Hang on, I'll check it out. I had to add it up again. I couldn't find where I made the notes. $1,295 return on stuff that actually has definitely sold and left the shop. Pretty good price. I'm happy to get that sort of return. There's nothing in that lot that I really allowed big dollars for when I quoted. Certainly the motorbikes were the good value items when I quoted, and the lathe of course, but I'm keeping that. And I did see a few other nice bits and pieces. Incidentally, we never got the old phone back. It may still be coming my way. I know the nephew is trying to get it back for me because it was in the shed when I quoted. A few other tools I know went missing, but I'm not going to quibble over those. I'm pretty happy with that sort of return. We've got scrap metal to go as well. We've got some stuff that I'll eBay. It's going to turn out to be a good deal long term, and that's how most of my deals go. They do take a while to get a good return to come back. But over the scheme of it, when it's all done and dusted, hopefully we've made good profits, because if I haven't, I'm not a very good second-hand dealer. So there we go. That's what's going so far with the notepad. Now, to finish off this video, let's go through a crate of the stuff that I packed out of the big workshop, the huge random collection of stuff that was in that shed. I threw a lot of it into crates very quickly, so it is a definite assortment. Let's go through it. And there's also a tin here. I had a lot of these tins as I found them in the shed, and as I was cleaning the big workbench, I was just chucking everything in here that clearly wasn't rubbish to be sorted out later. Some of it, well, probably a lot of it will be scrap. But now's the time to go through it, and I'll show you how I process it all. Let's unpack the crate first, and then we'll get the camera a bit closer so you can see exactly what I've got. But there was lots of containers of nuts and bolts and screws, and some of them I had picked off the bench and thrown them into an empty tin, and others were just on shelves. Like a lot of sheds, most of the stuff ends up just a bit of a lucky dip. There were some packets of new hardware, so I'll work out how I'm going to deal with those. There's clearly some broken things. They're air horns, but one of them's quite damaged. There's probably some things that might be just e-waste. Not sure what that is. It's a tacho, an hour meter, probably for a ride-on mower or something. So if that works, it's going to be saleable. We have a stand off a bike or a motorbike, probably. This looks like a motorbike horn, a brand new one, made in Italy. So that's certainly going to have some value. And there's an older one here. Horns are very easy to test, just 12 volts across there, and we should get some sort of tone. An oil can, more random tins full of hardware. So I'll get this all out on the bench. We'll move the crate away, and we shall work out what to do with it all. All right, let's thin this out a little bit with the bigger things. Well, there's a spray can of Aerogard. I do use that in the shed. We do get mosquitoes around here this time of the year, so that will be used in my shed. It's nearly full, by the way. So that's assorted hardware. We'll go through that in a minute. Same with those. Oh, there's some radio knobs. They were probably off that console radio that I actually sold for $50, but I will hang on to the knobs as a matching set of 5 with the felt backing. So they might be useful for a radio restoration. I do have a box for the old radio knobs. More assorted hardware in here. We have a little generator from a push bike. So we can probably test that and it would be saleable. That is a starter cup from probably a mower, and I have got a Honda mower that I got from this place, and you used to start it with a socket on top of the flywheel. So this may actually be off that mower, so we'll hang on to that. And likewise with the motorbike parts, I'm not sure if the stand is actually a motorbike one or not, but I've got a crate at the moment where I'm putting anything that relates to motorbikes in, and we'll sort all that out later. So both these horns and the mirror and the stand will go in that crate. And that's going to leave us pretty well with a large pile of just general hardware to go through. I'll test this tacho and see if it works. And what's that, another one? Maybe Sigma. Could be, not sure on that one. I can always just Google the model number and see exactly what it is. That's possibly a sensor. Maybe that's for measuring revs on a bicycle or something. Not sure on that one. Heavy piece of steel. There's another piece of steel here. I do keep some of these bits because it's going to be handy when I'm fabricating. Good stuff to weld this nice thick steel. Equally, I could just throw it in the heavy melt steel. But I do keep a few of them. Eventually, if I get too many and I'm not using them, they'll just go for scrap. There's a large bolt here that's probably still quite usable with a nylock nut. So we'll put that in with a tin of large hardware. This is all new packets. Okay, let's start tipping some tubs out and just sorting. Okay, I've just been checking a few things online. With the new hardware, I'm going to keep some that I use. I do use these long tech screws for framing, and I do have to have a few jobs where I'll use those. But a lot of these ones that I won't use because I've got ample supply of them here. These, I think they've been opened, but they're still mostly full. They certainly look near full. I did check a price online for these, and they're like $9 something each. Also, the self-drilling screws here, I probably won't use these. One has clearly been opened, the other one I'm not sure. They were about $8 each. I might put those together for $5 the pair. The other ones here, we can go $5 each. We don't have a hardware in town at the moment, so I think this will probably sell quite well. Ones that are very grubby and clearly been opened and there's not many left, we will just pull the hardware out of it. And we'll sort all the hardware into They're brass screws, but they're a little grubby. We'll sort them all into piles, and I'll put them in jars later, and we'll just work out what sort of value we get. So pretty well it's just a matter of covering the bench with sorted little piles of screws. They're little self-tappers. And some of these tins will just tip out. Well, all of them we will. And as you can see, it's a real mixture. I'll save the tin. There's another one of those big tech screws, so that can go with the ones I'm keeping. I do keep large hardware. That bolt's had a hole drilled through it, but it will still be a useful bolt. So I'll keep all the large hardware in one spot. Perhaps we'll put it back in this tin for now. These have clearly been made up for something. That looks like a perhaps a boss for something. That one's been made out of masonite, so that can go in the firewood pile here. A bit of a collar been made up for something. These can go straight in the heavy melt steel as just heavy scrap. There's another good size bolt. Decent washer. That's a throttle cable off a mower, and it's been welded up, so that's just thin gauge. That can just go in the shred, which I take to the local transfer station. That looks like a brass fitting. Where's my magnet? Yep, so that can go in the scrap. A lot of these bolts, if they're not too rusty, I certainly keep them. These are all pretty rusty, and they've had their heads ground down on one side, so they've been modified for something. But they're about 1/4 inch diameter, so they can actually go in the heavy steel. Any real clean ones I'll certainly keep and put in a jar. A bit of a stud there. It's steel. I thought it might have been stainless. And that's quite a clean bolt. So I just basically sort them by looks. If they're clean and quite usable, and the thread's obviously okay. But you've got to be quick. You don't muck around with it. I think most of these has a good size washer again. Little bit of that looks like it's, some bracket. Just light gauge steel again. So anything that's heavy gauge is a wood screw. Now, I'll have a separate jar for these, even though we had some packets of them, because an assorted jar full of those is always handy. I do keep square nuts just because it suits the really old machinery. And if I'm doing restorations, we better keep our brass ones out of this spot. So I often use the magnet just to sort things quickly, and some of these are clearly bent and damaged, so they can all just go in the heavy steel. Pulling out a few bits that are clean enough. We need a separate tin for the heavy steel, so let's create one by tipping out another tin. There we go. Put our heavy steel in there for now, and we'll upgrade it when it gets full. So sorting hardware, you've got to be pretty quick. You don't want to overthink things, and I do like picking stuff up with a magnet because it leaves behind things that are brass. We have a light globe here that looks like it's blown, so we'll put that in my box for old light globes. Let's bring this next pile through. We have some nice good clean bolts here. So basically when I'm sorting, I go screws and small nuts and washers, sort of 5/16 and smaller. And I do like to check if there's stainless steel or brass or anything. And then anything that's sort of 1/4 inch or bigger, I'll put in another container. And then I have, much larger bolts in another container again. So I kind of do 3 sizes, but I'm not super critical about it. Whatever sorts quickly. These big R-clips I put in a separate container. I do get quite a lot of those. The farmers use those. I usually have a tub for angled brackets. And we have some good hardware in this one. Let's use the magnet again. And it's just kind of easier to pull stuff aside and sort it. Anything that's a bit too dirty or is a special one that people aren't likely to use, I'll just put it in the heavy steel tub. So it looks like these wing nuts are brass or stainless steel. They're quite an old style. I think they might be handy to keep separately. So as you can see, I go through it pretty quickly generally, as it's just making quick decisions, sorting it out as quick as you can. Sometimes the heads have matured out, they can just go in the scrap again. That's an old connector, but it's very, very dirty and quite damaged. That can just go in with the e-waste. A quick bench clean, and we'll tip out our next tin. What a mixed bag. And the screws in the bottom of that have got paint or something on them. I think they can stay in there. And that can actually be a tin for all our shred steel. That'll just go to the transfer station. We have a packet here of small wood screws again. I do keep them separately. There's the one we had before. Another throttle cable control. Doesn't look damaged, that one, but I don't expect I'll use that. I'm not even sure what that is. Honestly, no idea. It's quite heavy. You can just go in there with a heavy melt steel. A nice piece of round stock. I have mentioned previously that I'm keeping a lot of this for lathe work. That one's a little bit short. I've got plenty of longer lengths of that. Larger size hardware. A little D-shackle. We'll keep a separate container for those. Bit of rubbish. Another throttle control lever. Looks like a jigsaw blade. I've got a box of those in my shop here, in my workshop here somewhere. A large brass nut. We do keep some brass hardware, but larger ones like that I'll probably just put in the brass bin. Okay, another tin. This one's mainly just wood screws. They're okay. We'll grab a jar to put them in. And we had some others before. Where did they go? Oh, there's some in here. Yep. And a tin like that I'm not going to use. I'll just put that in a recycling. A piece of pipe. It's only thin gauge and it's definitely steel in that one. Okay, another tin to sort through. Alright, good hardware there. These bolts are a bit old and rusty. They can just go in the heavy melt. Bit of key steel. Oh, no, I think it's a broken chisel. Little bracket. And we've got a lot of self-tappers here. And another couple of long wood screws. We better have a jar for self-tappers. And we had these little self-tappers before. Clean our bench spot off again. We've got no more tins. We've just got this tub. So there's a few brass screws in this one. There was only 6 pieces originally, and there's 4. We'll put all our brass hardware in another jar, together with this other stuff we had earlier. Some more hardware here. This is, I don't think these are brass ones. No, they're not. So if we can get into this, we will start. We'll start another jar for smaller screws. Here we go. We had another one there before. Now, that's pretty full. We could sell that. It might only be $3, but we'll keep them complete if they're near full and new looking. There's some more hardware there. There's probably enough in that to still sell. That one's certainly still full. No label. There's some brass screws, so we'll take them out. High tensile bolts. There's some nice big bolts, unopened. And another one, nice big bolts, but there's no label with it. I think we could still sell that. People can see what it is. Smaller ones, unopened. Handy Pack 15 self-tapping screws. They're probably still all in there. Oh, heaps of them here. Alright, so some of these aren't going to bring $5, but they might certainly bring $3. I'll put all these in this tub for now, and we'll price them out a bit later. An old compact fluorescent tube here. It's possibly still okay. It's very dirty. I might just give that a clean up, and I might use that in the workshop or in a lamp that I make. Our last container here, we have some Loctite a gasket compound. I'm not sure if it's okay or not. Looks like it probably is. So I'll probably use that in the workshop. We have some machine brass washers. There's only a few left in the packet, so they can go in with their brass hardware. We have, oh, it's a sunburn cream. Alright, I don't think I'll keep any medical stuff, and it feels very hard. We'll have to throw that one out. Now, the bicycle generator. I'm not sure how we go about testing those. I think we can just spin it probably and put a voltmeter on the end and see if it produces anything. There's a really large Tech screw. I'll put that with the other ones I'm keeping. A piece of aluminium plate can just go in the scrap. Some wire can go in the scrap. And a little bit more wire. Another good bolt. It looks like we have a whole heap of second-hand roofing nails. Oh, and some Tech screws. So the Tech screws are still quite usable, and they're the sort that go into timber, so I do use those as I've explained. So I will keep those. They work perfectly fine second-hand. They're not rusty. So we'll pull all those ones out. I won't bore you with that. And all the bent roofing nails will just go into the shred steel. I certainly aren't going to try and straighten and reuse old roofing nails. So, alright, that's all that appears to be in this pile. So I'll sort these out quickly, and then we'll lay everything out on the bench and have a look at what value we've got. Okay, all sorted out. Let's run through it. I'm not going to do a notepad on this, and I don't have time to go and price everything individually, but it'll give you a guide of how I process assorted hardware and what sort of dollars I get for it. And, you know, every box is different with what you find. Bit of heavy steel, and just to keep that in perspective, the heavy stuff, that's, I think it was about a kilo. Just under a kilo, so about 40 cents worth. The air horns they were badly brittle and they're all clogged up, so dirty aluminium for those, only a few cents worth of wire, one piece of brass. The terminals I generally put in dirty brass, a couple of bits of copper that turned out to be copper, that pipe, some aluminium. I'm going to hang on to those brass wing nuts just because they're pretty early ones and they might be handy in a project. You can see the jars that I've sorted the hardware into, and I'll talk about that in a second. A few other random bits that will be distributed in my shed to various containers and eventually probably be sold. There's a drill bit that might go in one of the kits I got from this shed, so I'll keep all them separate for now. Some consumables, the AeroGuard and some gasket stuff. A small pile of stuff that just has to go in the bin, we can't avoid that. And the other stuff I spoke about earlier that I'm keeping for now, or at least allocating to tubs until we get right through this deal. This does work, I checked it. I haven't actually registered a speed on the tacho as such, but apparently you have the sensor wire wrapped around the spark plug lead. But I did get it to power up. Oh, there you go. So the battery in it's still okay. It says 1.4 hours. You can buy them fairly cheaply, and I did read that you can't replace the lithium battery in it, so once the battery goes flat, you really got to buy another one. I'm just going to put $5 on that in the shop. We have the stuff that's going in the shred. I cleaned up the oil can. It came out really well. All I did was just wash it with petrol. It's German made, so we'll get $10 for that. Stuff for recycling, just the empty tins. The light globe I tested and it's no good, so that can go with the other dodgy light globe. A little bit of stuff for the e-waste bucket, including this. And I was correct, it is actually a bicycle odometer as such. And the sensor, it was incomplete. There's no brackets for it. I checked up that model, and it's quite an old model, and they're fairly cheap to buy. So They can just go in the e-waste. I don't think the battery is any good in it. I couldn't get any life out of it. All the hardware here, we're basically going to go $3 each on all these ones. Yep, so $3 there. What do we got? 5, 11, so what's that? $33. And then $5 each on these ones. They're stainless steel, so that's $50 out of the new hardware. I don't need to keep that here. If I need something, I'll go and buy it, but I get this sort of stuff coming in all the time, and my workshop's pretty well stocked. Now, with the jars, there's value in sorting all that out. I know it looked a bit tedious, and some of you might not like spending time just sorting nuts and bolts, but I find it's a good time to catch up on your favourite YouTuber, have it playing in the background, or a bit of music. Those of you that like to have a beer in the shed, nice relaxing activity. And what I get, this isn't from this deal, this is stuff I've saved. Now there's a kilo of brass there, so at scrap price it's about $7, $7.50, but I can ask $15 to $20 for that in the shop. So we're getting more than twice the price of brass, and they do sell. I sold one just the other day. I don't have any left in the shop. Same with your general hardware. That's about half a kilo of self-tappers, and I'll get $5 for that. People seem to like assorted sets. It's really handy in the shed, and you only have to be saved, you know, once on a project to have something to get you out of trouble, that it's well worth the $5. So $5 for half a kilo is $10 a kilo. Normal price on this stuff, it'd have to go as shred, is about, you know, 25 cents a kilo. So we're well in excess of scrap money. It's worth sorting out. That's another one of just general hardware I've got that came from somewhere else. And when I get about half a kilo of that, I'll put $5 on it. Brass, obviously, I'll make more expensive. The larger hardware, I'd probably do $5 per kilo. But even so, that's better than 40 cents or 45 cents per kilo at the scrapyard. So that's why I sort it out, and I have got the outlet of the shop to sell it. So that's certainly, you know, if I've got the outlet, I might as well use it. And if you want to do that yourself, maybe it's worth checking out your local second-hand dealer, and if you take him in, you know, a box of hardware all in jars, he may go your halves. Who knows? It's always worth checking. Now, I forgot about this tin of hardware. We'll get to that in another video. This one's gone way too long, but we do have to test this bike. I called it a generator. They usually call it a dynamo. It's got a brand on there somewhere. I can't quite read that. They're generally only about 5 watt or something like that. I think I can read something 3 watt. I don't know what US means, but I think we can check to see if it works. I have a plan. Okay, I think you can see both here. I've got the voltmeter down here, and it should be readable if we get a voltage. I've got the leads of the multimeter onto the dynamo, and I'm going to just run it off the wire wheel. I figured it was the easiest way to drive it. It will probably drive quite a lot faster than it will on a bicycle. And now I'll see if I can do this without blocking off your view with a voltmeter. That should work. Oh, we went off scale. Okay, I hope you saw that. It registered around about 20-21 volts. Interestingly, these produce AC voltage. So anyway, it works. It generates power. So not that it's worth very much. I'll probably put $10 on it in the shop. There's quite a lot of them on eBay, and they don't seem to sell. Or sometimes they do. But anyway, we'll put $10 on that, and we know it works. So there you go, guys. An unboxing of a pretty average representative sample of what I'm getting out of this shed. There are some treasures. You can sometimes find some really nice little bits. I'm finding a few pieces for me to keep, including the tech screws that I will use. So I keep hardware that I know I use. I don't keep a lot of stuff just in case I'm going to need it, because that'll just fill the shed and I won't be able to move. But yeah, I can still move just. $60 or $70 worth of stuff I can put in the shop. There's some motorbike bits to go into a tub to wait and see if any more turn up. There's a few consumables that I'll use, a little bit of rubbish, and some stuff for my scrap bins. So that's how I sort the stuff. I will keep going with this series, and in the next episode I'll update the price list and tell you what our our bottom line is up to. I do have to get the motorbikes out and clean them up and put them on eBay, and there's a lot of other stuff I've got to go through, but it's a matter of pacing myself because I have to go off to the farm every second week at the moment. So that's what's going on here. I thought I'd better touch base with you on this series. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Catch you next one. Bye for now.